Deep in the mountains of Guangxi, China, there once lived a German man who gave up a comfortable life to move to one of the poorest villages. For over a decade, he devoted himself to children whose parents had left for work in distant cities. He took no salary, living on just $30 a month, sharing simple vegetable meals with the kids. The children saw him as their only family, and he saw them as his entire world. Yet in the end, he had to say goodbye to each child one by one and leave the land he loved so deeply. As he left, he said, "My heart has died." His Chinese name was Luanke, a German man who left his homeland to embody the true meaning of education. There is a beautiful quote about education. Education is one tree shaking another tree, one cloud pushing another cloud, one soul awakening another soul. Lu's story in that remote village was a perfect illustration of these words. Lu was born in September 1968 in Hamburg, Germany, into a middle-class family. He had a twin brother, a sister, and a younger brother. His parents held very progressive views on education and never pressured their children to live a certain way. Perhaps it was this freedom that led the entire family to make unconventional life choices. His brother became a long-term volunteer for Greenpeace, and his sister worked as a teacher in impoverished kindergartens in Namibia, Africa. As for Lu himself, he came to China as an exchange student in the summer of 1992, studying at universities in Nanjing and Guangxi. During his time studying in China, Lu traveled deep into rural areas. The poverty he witnessed and the simplicity of the villagers profoundly moved him. Those days living among the rural communities planted a seed in his heart. He wanted to stay and teach in Chinese villages. In 1997, 6 months after graduation, Lu returned to China. He first taught German for free at a school for disabled children in Nanning, then asked the Chinese government to send him to the most challenging places as a teacher. 2 years later, he was assigned to a county middle school in Yangshuo, Guilin, teaching English to 4 classes. However, his unique teaching approach soon ran into problems. Lu had a very unconventional teaching style. He did not use textbooks or give exams. Instead, he encouraged students to create freely and develop their sense of language. Students came up with imaginative sentences like "run like the kite," "I can fly a bike," which delighted him. But by exam standards, such sentences were wrong. When final exams came, his class scored the worst in the entire school. Only 6 students passed. Years later, he recalled that the children were heartbroken, and so was he. Unable to improve test scores, parents complained, and Lu had to leave. After that, he moved between several schools, but was dismissed each time for the same reason. These repeated failures left Lu deeply frustrated. He said, "I could not meet the school standards or become the kind of teacher they wanted. I did not understand why my students wanted me to only give them homework problems that billions of people had already solved." At that time, his questions had no answers. After many setbacks and failures, in 2003, Lu finally arrived at Banley village, deep in the mountains of Donglin County, Hechi City, Guangxi. He began teaching at a small school there. Years later, he believed this was the place he was destined to reach. This remote mountain village would witness an educational experiment that would last more than a decade. Banley Village was located deep in the mountains of Donglin County, Hechi City. When Lu first arrived, the village did not have full electricity or running water. Students' homes were scattered across villages halfway up the surrounding mountains, requiring long walks on mountain paths to reach school. On rainy days, the roads became muddy and impassable except on foot or by tractor. Students ate only 1 vegetable dish or sweet potato leaves per meal. Due to malnutrition, many 10-year-old children looked like they were only 6 or 7. Villagers spoke only the Zhuang language, so Lu, being German, also had to teach the children Mandarin Chinese. The school was made of mud and tile. When it rained, water leaked everywhere in the classrooms. The campus conditions were extremely harsh, but there was one crucial thing: a principal who fully accepted Lu and agreed to let him teach in his own way. In September 2003, Lu became an unpaid teacher at Banley Elementary School, where he would remain rooted for the next decade. He taught the children music, physical education, art, and nature, using his own unique methods. He did not use textbooks in class. Instead, he created projects with the students. He moved the classroom outdoors to the mountainside under the sunset in the rice fields by the river. His first project at the school was organizing fifth-grade students to build a dam in the village river so students could swim. He and the students designed blueprints together, hauled sand and mud, and built a sturdy dam brick by brick. This allowed the students to use their talents and strength to transform their environment. He rarely lectured the children about big ideas. Instead, he joined them in action and shared experiences with them. Liu said, "Words are useless. Once spoken, they are forgotten, but things experienced together leave real traces." So during free time, Liu stayed with the children. Sometimes he and the children rolled around freely in the mud. Sometimes Liu lay on the grass while 5 or 6 children tumbled and played in his arms. Sometimes the children painted on his face with brushes or pinched his cheeks and nose. Liu never got angry. He just smiled warmly. Sometimes mischievous boys pulled at his clothes and arms, crawling and climbing around him like monkeys hanging on his body. Gradually, he became one with the children, inseparable from them. In the children's eyes, Teacher Liu was their best friend, a companion who could climb trees in the mountains, swim in the river, and roll in the mud with them. To give the children a richer and more meaningful experience, Liu decided to make a television drama with them. He wrote a script called Sword of Peace and combined art, music, and practical activity classes together, organizing fifth-grade students to participate in the filming. Making a television drama in the crude conditions of the mountains with a group of mischievous kids seemed impossible. But in reality, if you believe in the children, many miracles can happen. Liu made prop making and background design the art class, dubbing and composing music the music class, and acting and outdoor filming the practical activity class. The tight integration of these 3 classes turned the children into a film crew. The children made props together, discussed the script together, and played different roles. After filming each section, Liu organized everyone to watch their own performances. The students were amazed when they saw the edited footage. They could not believe they had actually made a television drama, and their enthusiasm soared. They vowed to do even better next time, rewriting the script together and creating music. The atmosphere in the classroom became incredibly lively. During this process, many children learned to express their opinions bravely and to respect others' ideas. By overcoming difficulties together and sharing joy, classmates who used to fight frequently began getting along more harmoniously. Many mischievous children learned to care for others and take responsibility, embodying the spirit of peace and tolerance that Sword of Peace was meant to convey. Liu once recalled in a book, "After filming, we talked about peace and about tolerant, diverse ways of living. Our class had an atmosphere of peace that was a kind of beauty I had never experienced before." Later, Liu led the children to film another television drama called The Newly Promoted and created a musical called Dream Farewell together. The step-by-step process of bringing these works to life gave meaning, confidence, joy, and motivation to his and the children's lives. After filming was complete, Liu distributed DVDs to every child. The children watched them countless times, their faces beaming with joy each time. This was their own culture. This was their own spiritual and emotional home. During China's rapid urbanization, massive numbers of rural workers flooded into cities for work, driving rapid economic development. However, this also created a special group, left behind children. Banley Elementary School had 240 students, and 90% of them were left behind children. Their parents worked in coastal cities. Many children had lived at school since they were 4 years old, lacking parental love and companionship year after year. One child wrote in a diary, "Mom and Dad, I long for you to come home. I promise to be a good child." Through daily interactions, Liu became a father figure to over 200 children. At night, he slept in the same dormitory with the children, chatting with them and learning about each child's characteristics and worries. Every weekend, Liu took turns staying at students' homes where no adults were present, cooking with them, chatting, herding cattle, and harvesting corn. Many children's parents did not come home even for Spring Festival, so Liu spent the holiday with them. He once said helplessly, "There are too many of them. I alone cannot replace so many parents." But he gave them as much love as he could. When he first arrived, the children were afraid of him. They thought his blonde hair and blue eyes looked strange. Later, many children came to see him as their only family. In an interview, a reporter asked a child, "Maybe he cannot really do much for you. Maybe he just stays with you?" The child answered innocently, "Yes," then nodded firmly and said, "That is enough for me." Companionship, creation, and belonging were the three key words of Lu's educational philosophy. He tried to use as few words as possible to explain things to the children. Instead, he accompanied them in experiencing and living. He once wrote in a book, "My students need to find their own path in life, but what is their path? I cannot possibly know. What I want to give them is the ability and strength they need to walk that path." Lu hoped to cultivate the children's creativity in actively discovering and solving problems, rather than passively waiting for others' arrangements. He also said education should make children aware of the needs of their environment and era, then help them feel their own abilities so they could find their life's mission to change the world. This process could help children establish a sense of belonging. In Lu's view, discipline could bring order, but that was passive. Only when a person belonged to something, to a group of people, to a society, would there be identification and a genuine desire to care for it. So he played with the students, built dams with them, created musicals and filmed television dramas, cultivating their creativity, passion, and sense of responsibility to transform the world around them. He did not use rules, but rather beauty to show children what was right. During his more than 10 years of teaching, Lu never took a salary. He lived by translating books, spending only about $30 per month. Any extra money went to buying school supplies for students or donating to charity. He had no socks, dressed simply, wore a pair of worn-out sneakers, and lived like an ascetic monk. What about love? He once said he did not understand what love was and could not imagine the feeling of someone belonging to him. His parents never believed children belonged to them, which was why he could stay in China. His parents felt it would be a waste for Lu to stay with them. It was more worthwhile for him to be with the students. At that time, he could not imagine romantic love. A reporter once asked him, "You do not drink, gamble, date, or eat meat. If you do not live for these things, then why do you live?" Lu smiled and answered, "I am doing what I love, and the joy it brings me is far deeper than those things." His smile was clear, like an innocent child. As time passed, Lu's story gradually attracted outside attention. Many people were inspired by his actions and came to Banley village to volunteer teach, but few could stay. More people came to Banley out of curiosity, which exhausted him. Shy and not good with words, he was actually very afraid of outside interference. In 2007, when he learned he had been nominated as a person who moved China for 2006, he immediately wrote to the judges asking not to be selected, stating, "I do not want to move China. China moves me." Later, a friend convinced him with a quote from Mandela, "If you hide yourself and do not dare let others see how you do what you love, others will think they cannot do it either. If you let them see, it is like saying anyone can do this, and then many people will do it." Inspired by these words, Lu decided to accept an interview with a reporter from China Central Television. In December 2009, when a program about rural education volunteer Lu aired on China Central Television News, his story attracted even wider social attention and inspired countless young people to go teach in remote mountains. However, Lu had to bear the consequences. He received thousands of letters every day. His blog views and comments skyrocketed. Countless people asked him about the meaning of life and expressed their desire to follow him. At the same time, various doubts, insults, attacks, and abuse began to appear. Some thought he was an opponent of Chinese education who wanted to harm national interests. Some thought he deliberately wanted to slap Chinese education in the face. The most vicious attack was the suspicion that he was a pedophile. He had to hide in students' homes because strangers often sat by his bed waiting for him to wake up. He felt mentally and physically exhausted, and his health began to deteriorate. He was forced to shut down his personal blog and said, "Society's attention to me has exceeded my capacity to bear it. I dare not let more people know about my situation." To escape media tracking, he returned to Germany for over 2 months. But thinking that many children's parents would not come home for Spring Festival and would be lonely, he returned to be with the children during the holiday. From then on, avoiding the media became Lu's daily routine. While Lu was avoiding media attention, real changes were happening in the children. Filming the television dramas Sword of Peace and The Newly Promoted made the class atmosphere very united. Some introverted children became more lively and more willing to express themselves. Lu took the children to play in the mountains. Seeing trees that villagers had cut down, he said, "When the trees are gone, the soil will wash away. One day, floods will sweep away everyone's houses." After hearing this, the children went to stop people from cutting trees. When persuasion did not work, the children said, "We will find ways to persuade them more. We must convince them." Under Lu's educational guidance, some boys began to learn self-awareness. When they could not control their behavior and hit others in class, after realizing this, a boy would take the initiative to say, "I cannot control myself. Let me go stand outside for a while." A very mischievous child said to Lu, "I am willing to make impossible changes for you." A deep connection, trust, and attachment developed between Lu and the children, and they could create impossible miracles. In Lu's view, giving his heart to the children and dedicating himself wholeheartedly to them would allow change to happen naturally. At that time, he never thought of leaving. He believed his life and the children's lives were tightly bound together. If he left, he would have no life.
有的人来这里，就总会觉得搞不下去，肯定你有一天我要走了，我觉得不能了。我的命好像跟他们的命连在一起。
如果走掉呢？
走掉就没有命了。
In 2013, Lu said goodbye to each child he had accompanied for years, then left Banley. When he left, his mood was very heavy. He said, "My heart has died." Why did Lu leave Banley? It became a mystery. Various speculations appeared on the internet. Some said he could not bear the attacks from public opinion and was forced to leave. Others said local villagers could not bear outside interference and no longer welcomed him. Still others said it was because he got married and his wife needed him to leave the mountain village. But what was the real reason? In 2010, he did marry a Chinese female volunteer he had known for 8 years. At that time, his wife was already in her 30s and living far away in the city. Even though they both shared the same ideals, his wife still hoped for a stable family, a child, and the happiness ordinary people could have. If Lu stayed in the countryside, his own child might become a left-behind child. His wife hoped Lu could have a stable job so he could obtain long-term residency in China. So after saying goodbye to the children, he and his wife went to Hangzhou, where he worked at a factory. After 2 weeks, he could not stand the work of taking a high salary to help the boss improve employee productivity, so he quit. After that, he moved between Vietnam, China, and Germany. But was marriage really the reason he left? Many years later, when someone interviewed Lu again, he finally revealed the truth. It turned out that the biggest reason he had to leave was the enormous pressure from the media. He said, "The biggest trouble was caused by the media. The media created another story, and that was not the real me. But because people believed what the media said, those false stories became reality." Facing those vicious rumors and slander, he said calmly, "People will always speculate wildly. They do not know what kind of person I really am, and the more I tried to prove my innocence, the more they doubted me." To protect those children and to prevent the media chaos from hurting them, he chose to leave. It was a helpless and painful decision. After leaving Banley, Lu returned briefly several times to visit the children, but due to health issues, family matters, residency problems in China, and ongoing media pressure, he could not stay there long term. When he left, his mood was very low for a long time, and it even affected his physical health. He went to Vietnam, the closest place to Guangxi. After a month, he returned to China, but never found a place like Banley again. In the following years, Lu focused on training education volunteers and wrote books including Rural Volunteer Teaching Manual, What Brings Strength, and Education of Rural Children. After 2015, he gradually withdrew from public view and disappeared. People said goodbye to the name Lu, but in his heart, he never truly said goodbye to those children. Lu had left, but the impact he brought remained in Banley, like seeds that were planted, beginning to take root and sprout, growing lush branches and leaves, bearing full fruit. The student who once played the main character in The Newly Promoted had grown up, This student, who was the most difficult to manage as a child, studied auto repair. He enjoyed taking apart and reassembling engines. When a reporter asked about Lu's influence on him, his eyes were firm and confident as he said, curiosity and creativity. His dream was to open an auto repair shop with genuine passion and confidence for what he was doing. A girl named Xiaodan said in an interview that her time with teacher Lu made her change from shy to lively. She hoped to become an actress and practice dance steps every day. Sometimes she asked students with special talents for advice. Sometimes she hid in the bathroom to practice secretly, gradually improving her posture. She also hoped to become a volunteer to help others achieve their dreams. The students all missed the days of building dams, creating musicals, and filming television dramas with Lu. Even students who were never directly taught by teacher Lu felt curious about, fond of, and missed this magical teacher because of their older siblings' influence. One child said, "I thought when I reached third grade he would teach me to draw too. But when I got to third grade, he was gone." Almost every student could quickly point to Germany on a world map and tell others that was where teacher Lu's home was. They knew that beyond the mountains was a much bigger world, and as long as they were willing to pursue it, explore it, and experience it, they could reach it. And many years later, when the children are striving on their own life paths, they will remember that afternoon rolling freely in the mud with teacher Lu, remember his warm and bright companionship. That experience is like an eternal lamp, giving them more courage and strength to keep moving forward on the road of life. Today, Lu no longer uses the name Luanke. He told an interviewer, "The name Luanke has been used in too many stories by others. I feel it is very far from me. People change their view of me because of those stories. That name is no longer me." So now he goes by Luenka. 2.5 years ago, through a friend's introduction, he came to a small mountain village in Fujian. It has the mountains, water, and nature he loves, but he still wants to return to Guangxi. Over these years, Lu has never said goodbye to China, only to education. He said he does not like doing education because it has too many requirements, is too deliberate, and not natural enough. During those years in Banley, he never thought about changing those children. He just did things he loved with them. He liked to create things and get inspiration from nature. The children also liked the same things, so they did them together. He was not trying to change the children, but to appreciate them. He still keeps in touch with the students he taught, but those students do not talk about what work they do because it is not what they truly want to do. Among his former students, 4 people found what they truly wanted to do. Like him, they feel that in nature, it is easiest to find a sense of belonging. Lu loves climbing mountains, observing plants, and listening to insects and birds. Only in nature is he his true living self. In the years since leaving education, he has been doing work related to nature. He gets inspiration from nature to compose music, designs and builds sailboats, and has won prizes in sailing competitions. He makes a living by editing videos for friends and designing activities, with occasional support from friends. Village life is very cheap. He does not have high material requirements. Enough to live is enough. 2.5 years ago, through a friend's introduction, he came to a small mountain village in Fujian. It has the mountains, water, and nature he loves, but he still wants to return to Guangxi, to that place where humans and nature are one. Regarding those past rumors and slander, Lu has found peace. He said those reports had nothing to do with him. It was just that some people liked making up stories. The stories they made up have nothing to do with him. Those people did not enter his life or truly disturb him. About those malicious suspicions, he said calmly that people will always speculate wildly. The more he tried to prove his innocence, the more they doubted him. So he chose to stop explaining. He only does what he loves and does not need any reward. And he has already received much, things he loves and sincere friends. For him, that is enough. Lu is still that person who follows his heart. Where his heart points, he goes with full devotion, not for meaning, but for love. This German man who once lit up the hearts of countless children deep in China's mountains now continues exploring in nature, living the life he has chosen. His story tells the world that true education is not about pouring in knowledge, but about awakening souls. True happiness is not about having a lot, but about doing what you love. If you love something, go boldly and do it. May everyone find their true self.